Good morning. It's a beautiful Thursday morning and we're back once again with a fresh edition of Breakfast News. I'm Preeti, with me is Rukma. In the next 1 hour, we'll get you everything that's making it to the headlines. We'll get you national headlines, we'll get you international updates, we'll get you updates from the world of sports, also a web review wherein a colleague joins us with headlines which have been put forth by various web portals across social media platforms. Also, we get you a health tip every day to make sure that you remain in good health and spirits. Everything packed in the next 1 hour to make sure that your tea or coffee right in the morning tastes even better.
Well, hello Preeti, and a very good morning to all our viewers as well. As Preeti was saying, it's a packed 1 hour ahead, so stay tuned to DD India as we present all the latest in news from every sector, whether it is national news, international, business or sports. We'll be talking about the virtual summit between Prime Minister Modi and his Bangladeshi counterpart Sheikh Hasina. Also the latest in farmer talks with the Union government, as also news from the news on COVID, especially from the international arena. But first, here are the headlines.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bangladesh counterpart Sheikh Hasina to hold virtual summit today, likely to discuss bilateral relationship and post-COVID cooperation between the countries.
ISRO to launch PSLV C-50, 52nd mission of PSLV from Sriharikota, 22nd flight of PSLV in Excel. Configuration is to be launched in the evening, subject to weather conditions.
A big relief for sugarcane farmers. Cabinet approves a 3,500 crore rupees subsidy. It will be put in farmers' bank accounts. Move to benefit 5 crore farmers as well as 5 lakh workers employed by sugar mills.
In other big decisions, Cabinet approves auction of spectrum. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs approves revised cost estimate of Northeastern Region Power System Improvement Project at an estimated cost of 6,700 crore rupees.
Government reiterates commitment to farmers' welfare. Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar addresses farmers in Gwalior, says attempts made to mislead Punjab farmers. Supreme Court notice to government to hear arguments of 8 farm unions today.
Global corona cases exceed 7 crore 44 lakh with 16 lakh 54,000 fatalities. Global efforts in the race for a coronavirus vaccine. Development Bank offers $1 billion to help Latin America, Caribbean with COVID-19 vaccinations.
Texas and 9 other states sue Google, accusing it of working with Facebook to break antitrust law to boost its online advertising business.
In sports, India to play against Australia in day-night test with pink ball in Adelaide today. Prithvi Shaw is the second opener. Riddhiman Saha picked over Rishabh Pant.
Alright, those were the headlines we're tracking this hour. We begin by giving you details first of the national headlines.
True, and as we were saying, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina will hold today a virtual summit. During this, the two leaders will hold comprehensive discussions on the entire spectrum of the bilateral relationship, including further strengthening cooperation in the post-COVID era. The two sides are expected to sign at least 4 memorandums of understanding to boost bilateral cooperation during the summit. A goods train is also scheduled to run from Chilahati to Haldibari. India and Bangladesh have continued to maintain regular exchanges at the highest level. Bangladesh PM paid an official visit to India in October 2019. Prime Minister Modi delivered a video message on the historic occasion of Mujib Borsho in March 2020. Both leaders have remained in regular touch during the COVID pandemic.
All right, to talk more about it, our correspondent Arun is joining us. Arun, both the leaders of the two countries have maintained regular touch during the COVID pandemic. Added to this, this virtual summit comes just the next day of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Vijay Diwas, which led to creation of Bangladesh. I would want you to talk more about what is on the cards, what is to be taken up by both the countries, because we've told our viewers that the main, the thrust of this virtual summit is to further enhance the bilateral relationship.
Good morning, Preeti. Good morning, Rukma. Well, indeed, you mentioned it very rightly that just a day after Vijay Diwas, both India and Bangladesh are meeting virtually, and in a series of virtual interaction, this is primarily an 8th interaction of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Earlier, we have seen that virtual summits were held between various other European countries, then Sri Lanka, then of course now this as a neighborhood first policy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be holding this interaction with the Bangladeshi counterpart. Now, yes, an important day as far as bilateral ties will get a major push with this virtual interaction. There are many MOUs, ranging from agriculture sector to the logistical part are likely to be signed. But most importantly, as far as the COVID collaborations are concerned, in that context, this meeting is going to be very much important. Second, we know this fact that this is also a centenary birth celebration year of Bangabandhu, or you said it, father of the nation of Bangladesh. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Sheikh Hasina, the Bangladeshi Prime Minister, will jointly be, inaugurating this commemorative stamp of Bangabandhu. That's Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Second important aspect is that a digital exhibition will also be launched by both the leaders. Now, this digital exhibition is known as Bangabandhu Bapu Digital Exhibition. Now, this digital exhibition will first of all be showcased in Delhi, and then in various other parts of our country, and of course in Bangladesh as well. Then this digital exhibition will be showcased in United Nations, and finally this digital exhibition will culminate in 2022 in Kolkata. Idea of this digital exhibition is that various facets of or primarily various episodes of freedom struggle faced by both the countries, that is India and Bangladesh, will be showcased there. Personalities of Bangabandhu and Bapu, that's Mahatma Gandhi, will be showcased in this digital exhibition. So that's an important part. Last but not the least, it is about the rail link that is likely to be restarted once again. Now, this rail link is between Haldibari and of course Chilahati. Now, there are close to 6 rail links between India and Bangladesh, out of which 4 are operational as of now. Now, when we talk about this rail link between Chilahati and of course Haldibari, this was closed post 1965 war. Now, after which now this is again being restarted. The idea is as to how can connectivity can be given a major push as far as the rail link is concerned. We also know this fact that various goods, NFMCG product and various other goods are being transported between India and Bangladesh via the rail links as well. So it is expected that this particular rail link that both the leaders will be jointly inaugurating today will of course give a major push between Bangladesh and of course in West Bengal and Assam region as well. So this will of course increase the people to people connection, people to people ties, and of course give a major push to the infrastructure as well. Last but not the least, it is about the COVID collaboration as well. We know this fact, Preeti, that Serum Institute of India has signed an MOU with the Bangladeshi pharma giant. It is to supply close to 30 million or close to 3 crore COVID vaccine of AstraZeneca to Bangladesh. So more collaborations are likely to be seen as far as the COVID vaccine is concerned. So all in all, major bilateral ties, how can they be given a major push? That is the likely area and the focus area when both the leaders meet today. Preeti?
Right. Well, Arun, you've given us the entire gamut of talks, the issues that could be taken up, the issues in focus today. But also, when we look at the growing ties between India and Bangladesh, stronger than ever before. With today's virtual summit, as it sums up all that has gone before, can we see it as a message going out to certain neighbors who continue to be antagonistic, others, who are trying to flex their muscles in the region?
Absolutely. So India has been vocal on this part as far as the terrorism is concerned, not only nationally, not only internationally, on various multilateral platforms as well. India has raised this issue of terrorism and cross-border terrorism particularly, that primarily both countries have witnessed Important aspect is that 2021 is going to be an important year for India as well, because India will be holding the seat of non-permanent member seat at the UNSC. So that's an important seat for
Yes.
India, and the world is looking towards India as to what India has to offer after holding that seat for the next 2 years. That's a powerful position. So yes, all eyes are on India as well. But having said that, Bangladesh is also looking forward, and primarily India and Bangladesh are looking forward as far as this virtual bilateral summit is concerned. It is how to increase the bilateral trade between both the countries, number one. Number two, how can bilateral ties be increased? For example, people-to-people ties, that is concerned. How can skilled manpower or skilled or primarily scholarships can be provided to the people, to the students of Bangladesh? How can a skilled manpower or primarily how can skilled mission or can be skilling can be done as far as the Bangladesh manpower is concerned? These are some of the areas like agriculture, areas like logistical support is something that Bangladesh is looking forward as far as this virtual summit is concerned. And India has always been forward and has been vocal about its neighborhood first policy. We have seen that India was the first country to come out with the idea of meeting during COVID times about and creating a SARC fund as well to fight against COVID-19, whereby this was the idea of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And on various other occasions, we have seen that India has played an important role as far as helping the neighborhood countries during the COVID pandemic time, be it supplying of the hydroxychloroquine medicine, or be it supplying the other healthcare gloves, healthcare equipments primarily, and medical supplies to various other countries. This also includes Bangladesh. So
Right.
yes, when today Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Bangladeshi counterpart will be meeting virtually, it will be an important day. This will not only give a boost to the bilateral ties, but also cultural ties will get a major push as far as this meeting, a virtual meeting primarily is concerned.
Right, a cultural and emotional ties also to get a boost, a very close relationship there between the two neighbors, getting a further boost with this virtual summit. Well, you keep your eyes on that story, Arun. We'll be back with you throughout the day for more. Thanks so much.
All right, let's get to other news. In a significant decision, the government on Wednesday approved a 3,500 crore rupees subsidy for sugarcane farmers. In another big move, the government approved auction of spectrum. Up next, we get you more details on the cabinet decisions in this report.
In a significant decision, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on Wednesday approved an assistance of 3,500 crore rupees for sugarcane farmers. The subsidy would be directly credited into the farmers' account. It will benefit 5 crore sugarcane farmers and their dependents. It will also benefit 5 lakh workers employed by sugar mills.
3500 करोड़ रुपए इस काम के लिए लगेंगे, लेकिन किसान के लिए खुशखबरी वो है कि जो प्रत्यक्ष निर्यात होगा, वो निर्यात का जो मूल्य मिलेगा वो भी किसान के खाते में जाएगा। वो लगभग 18,000 करोड़ रुपए मिलेगा। 5 करोड़ किसानों के फायदे का, 5 लाख मजदूरों के फायदे का, किसान के खाते में सीधे सब्सिडी जाने का 3,500 करोड़ आज घोषित सब्सिडी, 5,361 करोड़ पहले घोषित हुई सब्सिडी तो एक हफ्ते में मिलेगी, और उसके साथ साथ लगभग 18,000 करोड़ रुपए जो निर्यात से प्राप्त होगा वो भी किसान के खाते में जाएगा।
The subsidy aims at covering expenses on marketing costs, including handling, upgrading and other processing costs, and costs of international and internal transport and freight charges on export of up to 60 lakh tons of sugar, limited to maximum admissible export quota allocated to sugar mills for sugar season 2020-21. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs also approved the revised cost estimate of Northeastern Region Power System Improvement Project at an estimated cost of 6,700 crore rupees. In another major decision, the Union Cabinet approved Department of Telecommunications proposal to conduct spectrum auction. The auction will be for spectrum in 700 MHz, 800 MHz, 900 MHz, 1800 MHz, 2100 MHz, 2300 MHz, and 2500 MHz frequency bands.
ये टोटल जो स्पेक्ट्रम ऑक्शन होंगे ये 2251 मेगाहर्ट्ज होंगे जो ऑक्शन में आएंगे। 700, 800, 900, 1800, 2100, 2300 और 2500 मेगाहर्ट्ज बैंड्स हम ऑक्शन करेंगे। हमने इसका एक कार्यक्रम भी बना लिया है और इसी महीने हम नोटिस इनवाइटिंग एप्लीकेशंस इशू करेंगे और आने वाले मार्च में हमारी योजना है कि हम इस ऑक्शन को कार्य रूप देंगे।
The Cabinet Committee on Security approved a National Security Directive on telecommunication sector in order to maintain integrity of supply chain security.
Under the provisions of this directive, in order to maintain the integrity of the supply chain security, government will declare a list of trusted sources, trusted products for the benefit of telecom service providers. The list of equipments to be covered under this directive and the methodology to designate trusted products will be devised by the designated authority who is the National Cyber Security Coordinator.
The Cabinet also approved an MOU between India and the US for exchange of information in areas of mutual interest in the electricity sector. With Shailendra Mishra, DD India.
And the government has reiterated its commitment to farmers' welfare. Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar gave the assurance while addressing farmers in Gwalior. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court will hear farm unions today. Here's more.
Amid ongoing protest by the farmers at several border points of Delhi, government has once again made it clear that it is committed to the well-being of farmers. Addressing farmers at Kisan Sammelan in Gwalior, Union Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar said that government has implemented several schemes for the benefit of farmers. He also accused the opposition parties of misleading the farmers.
जब देश के एक कोने में पंजाब राज्य के किसानों को गुमराह करने की कोशिश की जा रही है, उनमें भ्रम पैदा करने की कोशिश की जा रही है। नरेंद्र मोदी जी ही एकमात्र ऐसा भारत में नेता है जो देश को बदल सकता है।
The Agriculture Minister Tomar further said that Swaminathan Commission had submitted its recommendations in 2006 during the UPA regime. However, no decision was taken on it. He added that Modi government has approved a minimum support price, providing farmers a profit of 50% over the cost of production.
स्वामीनाथन साहब ने 2006 में अपनी रिकमेंडेशन मनमोहन सिंह को प्रस्तुत की थी। यूपीए सरकार ने यह निर्णय नहीं किया, लेकिन मोदी जी आए तो आज लागत पर 50% मुनाफा जोड़कर एमएसपी घोषित करने का काम किया जाता है।
Other union ministers are also continuously highlighting the strides made by the country in the field of agriculture. The ministers said that with a motive to transform the agriculture sector, Centre has taken a host of historical pro-agriculture landmark initiatives.
तो ये साजिशी सिपाही का संदूक लेकर के किसानों के कंधे पर बंदूक चला रहे हैं और ये वो लोग हैं जो लोग की सामंती सियासत के बहुत ही जांचे, बहुत ही परखे, बहुत ही ट्रेडिशनल, बहुत ही प्रोफेशनल जो है वो प्लेयर्स हैं। खुद प्रधानमंत्री जी ने, खुद कृषि मंत्री जी ने, खुद पूरी सरकार ने एक ही बात कही है कि किसानों का हित हमारे लिए सर्वोपरि था, सर्वोपरि है, सर्वोपरि रहेगा।
Meanwhile, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has said that both the centre and the state governments should work as Team India in addressing the needs of the farmers. Speaking in Hyderabad, he said that apart from ensuring remunerative prices, the farmers should be provided with timely and affordable credit.
And we have to create a remunerative price. We have to see that the farmers are not exploited, and we have to see the farmers are given adequate, timely help. That is the duty of the government.
On the other hand, the Supreme Court on Wednesday issued notice to Centre on the plea seeking a direction for removal of protesting farmers from several border points of Delhi. Chief Justice of India suggested that a committee be set up to resolve the issue. The committee should comprise representatives of farmer unions and the government. Supreme Court will hear the arguments of 8 farmer unions, including different units of Bharatiya Kisan Union, on Thursday. Meanwhile, the government has welcomed Supreme Court's decision to set up a committee.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इसके बारे में जो फैसला किया है आज, वो उन्होंने कहा है कि एक कमेटी बनाना चाहते हैं जिसमें भारत सरकार के, किसान यूनियंस के, स्टेट्स के सभी रिप्रेजेंटेटिव हों और एक नेशनल इशू बनने वाला है। इस फैसले का स्वागत है। कल इसकी डेट उन्होंने डाली है। इस पे जो भी फैसला होगी सरकार सभी लोग मानेंगे।
6 rounds of meetings have taken place between the government and the representatives of thousands of farmers who have been protesting at the border points of the national capital for the past 21 days. DD India.
To talk more about it, as we told you that the Supreme Court on Wednesday has issued a notice to the centre. Vikas is joining us to get us more on that. Vikas, though the decision has been, the move by the Supreme Court has been welcomed by the centre, I would want you to talk more about what are the nitty-gritties of setting up this committee when the centre, also we tell our viewers that the centre today has issued the notice to the Supreme Court has issued a notice to the centre when the centre had asked for the removal of protesting farmers. I would want you to spell out more details on both of these issues.
Well, Preeti, so far as this committee is concerned, no formal order has been passed by the Supreme Court yet, but the court has expressed its intention that it will be better if a committee is formed. In that committee, several representatives will also be appointed from farmers' union, from government, and from independent experts may also be added to this committee. So what happened yesterday that only centre was available for arguing this case. Petitioner demanded from the Supreme Court that these farmers must be removed from the protest site in light of the Supreme Court judgment in Shaheen Bagh case. But court was of the opinion that both these cases cannot be compared, and if this issue is not addressed in time, it may become a nationwide problem. So the court was very clear that the best way to end this deadlock will be a committee. Now, what will be the formation of this committee, who will be the members, these issues will be decided by the Supreme Court when the matter will be heard today and at a later stage. But it is very clear that court is pressing upon negotiations by a committee rather than the talks between government and farmers. CJI pointed out that it seems that the previous talks failed and the deadlock could not be ended. So whatever happens today, only after that it will be clear that whether farmers will be removed first or the negotiations will go on parallel to this protest. These things will be decided only after a detailed hearing today. But court has given a very clear hint that court may not pass any specific order or any specific direction with respect to the whole issue. Instead, it may constitute a committee. What happened in the Shaheen Bagh case, court didn't pass a particular order or an interim order. Supreme Court simply formed a committee. So what happened yesterday, it seems that this case will also follow the same path.
Right, clearly there are clear indications right now, but Vikas, what would you say are the options that the government has in case the court does not decide either way? Can it appeal? Of course, I guess everything would depend on what the farmers do after negotiations.
Well, Rukma, today Supreme Court not only hear these petitions which were filed by the individual petitioners who were demanding removal of protesters, but some petitions were also pending before the Supreme Court. In those petitions, these 3 new agriculture laws have been challenged by different peoples, by different individuals. So those petitions will also be heard today. And what Supreme Court does in those petitions, that will be more important. If Supreme Court feels that this is not an area of its of its
Jurisdiction.
judicial review powers, then Supreme Court may say that you give a representation to the government and government will look into it.
Right.
It's very hard to say right now that what will be the next step of the center or the Supreme Court. Everything will be decided only after today's hearing.
Right. Thank you very much, Vikas, for joining us there. You keep your eyes on that story. We'll be back with you throughout the day for more.
ISRO will launch CMS-01, the 42nd communication satellite of India from Satish Dhawan Space Centre at Sriharikota. PSLV C-50, which is the 52nd mission of PSLV, will be launching CMS-01 from the second launch pad of the Satish Dhawan Space Centre in Sriharikota. Also, the launch is tentatively scheduled at 3:41 p.m. today as subject to weather conditions. CMS-01 is a communication satellite envisaged for providing services in extended C-band of the frequency spectrum. The extended C-band coverage will include Indian mainland, Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep Islands. The satellite will be the sole payload on the PSLV C-50 mission and provide telecommunication services including television, teleeducation, telemedicine and disaster management support. This includes expanded and improved telecommunication coverage for both Andaman and Nicobar Islands as well as Lakshadweep. It will also provide improved coverage over Indian mainland. The CMS-01 will be a replacement for GSAT-12 that was launched in 2011 with a mission life of 8 years. GSAT-12 itself was a replacement for INSAT-3B telecommunication satellite. The 44-meter high, 4-staged PSLV C-50 is the 22nd flight of PSLV in XL configuration and the 52nd mission of ISRO's workhorse rocket. The XL version features 6 strap-on motors hugging the first stage to give higher thrust during the initial flight moments. About 20 minutes into its flight, PSLV C-50 will eject CMS-01 into the geosynchronous transfer orbit, that is GTO, and from there the satellite will be taken up and positioned at geosynchronous stationary orbit. Now this will be the 77th launch vehicle mission from Sriharikota. Alright, to talk more about it, our correspondent Philip Matthews is joining us. Philip, we've told our viewers about the significance and how important CMS-01 would be, but I would want you to talk more about, as we've told our viewers, that the satellite will be launched at 3:45 p.m. today as per the weather conditions. You let us know, how do we expect the day and is the stage all set there?
Is the weather, although it has been raining along the Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh coastline for the last couple of days, and that is the only matter that will worry scientists a little bit. Although if the rains are not too heavy, the launch will go ahead as scheduled. But the weather is a concerning factor for the moment. Otherwise, preparations are going ahead as scheduled. In fact, fuel filling for the fourth stage of the rocket has been completed. Other checks are also in progress, and preparations are going on smoothly. That's what scientists tell us. For the moment, all eyes will be on the second launch pad at ISRO's Satish Dhawan Space Centre, from where the PSLV C-50 is scheduled to take off at 3:41 this evening.
Right, Philip, considering that just a few days back the Prime Minister had an interaction with various private players too who wanted to who want to become a part of ISRO, who want to become a part of various space programs, what would you say is the significance that ISRO is placing on this particular launch?
Well, you must remember this is a communication satellite, and India is launching the communication satellite after quite some time. In fact, the last communication satellite launched by ISRO was GSAT-30, and that was launched from Kourou in French Guiana on January 17th this year. So which means it's almost after a gap of 11 months that we are seeing a communication satellite go up into orbit. So that is an important moment for ISRO, because communications has always been one of the key objectives for which ISRO was set up, and providing communication to the far-flung areas of the country. This particular satellite will provide basically extended C-band coverage, which means of course that it will provide connectivity especially to far-flung areas like the Andaman Nicobar and the Lakshadweep Islands. These are areas, remote areas, where setting up telecommunications infrastructure has always been a problem. And thanks to satellites like CMS-01, this problem can be overcome. Satellite communications is the option and the way forward, and CMS-01 will be a key step in providing that. Apart from that, of course, it will provide better coverage over the Indian mainland as well. So connectivity, both whether it's mobile and online connectivity, is a key factor, and that will, of course, be provided by satellites like the CMS-01, which can ensure that telecommunications can be maintained even in adverse conditions.
Right. Right, Philip. Well, thank you very much for joining us there and for those inputs.
Yes.
Moving on now, icy winds swept the entire North India, including Delhi NCR, due to continuous snowfall in the mountains. The Met Department has said that the night temperature in North India will fall by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius in the next 2 to 3 days. Due to a drop in temperature, dense fog engulfed most parts of the north. Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Jammu and Kashmir have been experiencing snowfall for the past few days.
Time now to get you updates related to the COVID-19 situation across the country. With 33,813 recoveries recorded on Wednesday, the total number of recovered patients stands at 94,56,449. With this, the recovery rate currently stands at 95.21%. India's three-pronged strategy of test, trace and treat is proving to be a success. Fatality rate has dropped to 1.45%. Death toll was at 1,44,096. The number of active COVID-19 cases in India is more than 3.32 lakh. It is 3.34% of the total cases reported so far.
India's indigenous COVID vaccine, Covaxin, being developed by ICMR in partnership with Bharat Biotech, has shown encouraging results in Phase 1 human clinical trials. The vaccine showed safety and generated immune response in the trials. No vaccine-related serious side effects were observed. ICMR also informed that the vaccine can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius and is compatible with the National Immunization Plan. It is undergoing Phase 3 clinical human trials involving 26,000 participants.
Union Education Minister Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank has announced the dates for JEE Mains 2021. The engineering entrance will be conducted from February 23rd to 26th. Also, in a first, JEE Mains will be held 4 times from the next academic year, February, March, April and May. The decision is aimed at giving students multiple opportunities to improve their scores in the examination if they fail to give their best in the first attempt without wasting a whole academic year. The minister also announced that for the first time ever, JEE Main Examination 2021 will be conducted in 13 languages: Assamese, Bengali, Kannada, Malayalam, Marathi, Odia, Punjabi, Tamil, Telugu, Urdu, Hindi, English and Gujarati.
एक बार नहीं बल्कि आपकी वर्ष में 4 बार जेईई की परीक्षाएं होंगी ताकि हर छात्र को बहुत अच्छे तरीके से उसको अवसर मिल जाएगा और 4 सत्रों में जो कराई जाएंगी वो पहला फरवरी में होगा, दूसरा मार्च में होगा, तीसरा अप्रैल में होगा और चौथा मई में होगा। ये जो 4 सत्र में परीक्षा होगी एनटीए के द्वारा, राष्ट्रीय परीक्षा एजेंसी के द्वारा, वो परीक्षाएं आप अपनी सुविधा के अनुसार दे सकेंगे।
All right, up next we get to our segment Web Review, wherein a colleague joins us with all the headlines, the top stories which have been put forth in various web portals across social media.
And joining us is our colleague Anil. A very good morning to you, Anil. So what's trending on the web and the social media?
Very good morning, Rukma. Good morning, Preeti. Good morning, India. Well, I've called out 5 stories today from across the national dailies in India and also taking a look at social media sites. The top story that I've picked is from The Hindu, where the FB India head the FB India head had come before the parliamentary standing committee and had given us clarification with regards to that Wall Street Journal story with regards to the Bajrang Dal. The Facebook India head clearly stating that there is no element of Bajrang Dal content that necessitates a ban, because there was this Wall Street Journal story that had said that the way Bajrang Dal and the stories that they were operating, especially in the social media space, they were a bit on the back foot, especially with regards to the retaliation they were expecting. If they went ahead and banned a social outfit like Bajrang Dal, so they were a bit careful. But now the Facebook India head clearly coming out strongly and saying that no content that the Bajrang Dal had put on social media was anywhere close to what according to them violated the social media clauses. As a result of which, when they came before the standing committee, they clearly making it clearly coming out strongly stating that this particular ban is not required, and the content that Bajrang Dal had put, especially the social media on Facebook and all other social media groups, were clearly in line with what was required, and they met all the checks. As a result, there was no need for any kind of ban to be placed. But one particular point that the BJP MP there, Nishikant Dubey, raised was if Bajrang Dal was not found to be violating of its social media policies, then why did Facebook not deny that Wall Street Journal report and term it fake? We'll have to wait and watch for Facebook to respond on that particular element. But clearly, this particular story, especially from the Wall Street Journal, going all wrong as you look at it from a Facebook India post head's point of view. The next story that I've called out is from the Times of India. This is about India and World Bank signing a $400 million project to support COVID-affected people. The first part of this particular deal was for 750 million had come in May 2020. This is the second part that is coming, and this particular funding that has been put together is going to not only help the state and center, but it's also going to help all other players who are involved in it, so that the COVID treatment and the COVID rollouts when it comes to benefits can be rolled out in a much easier and simpler fashion using all government mechanisms like PDS and other forms. The third story that I picked is from the stock markets. This is from the Mint. This is with regards to the stock markets, how they have played out yesterday. That's Thursday. Sensex has zoomed to 403 points. Sensex at its all-time high, 46,666. Nifty 114 points up, 13,650. The major stocks or the major sectors that helped the stock market move or zoom in that northward direction was metal, pharma, reality, and auto stocks. But one needs to be cautious, as one approaches the market today. Today is the last day of markets, especially in this week. One needs to be cautious because all analysts are saying that the Nifty now faces resistance at 13,700. So one needs to be careful before entering the market. And as I always say, one needs to be careful because markets is something, it's looking pretty, at this point of time, it's looking pretty good, but one needs to be cautious and one needs to do his bit of analysis or needs to get proper advice, especially when it comes to stock market before entering into it. Moving on to the next story that I picked up, this is from Twitter, and this is an interesting story with regards to a young girl, who's cooked 46 dishes in 57 minutes flat. And that's a new record that she's created. And it's interesting for the simple reason, just 3 months ago, we saw during this particular lockdown, we saw a girl from Kerala, a 10-year-old girl who had created 36 dishes in roughly an hour. This time around, the girl saw that story and she was fond of cooking. She's also a young girl. She was fond of cooking. She's from Chennai. Her name is SN Lakshmi Sai Shri. She was fond of cooking and she asked her mom whether, this could be, can I break the record? The parents encouraged her and she's managed to cook 46 dishes in 58 minutes flat. And that's interesting purely from the point of view, we would take roughly an hour to get 2 dishes together, or at least I would take more than 20 minutes to get my tea ready. So somebody going ahead and cooking 46 dishes in 50 or less than an hour is surely inspiring for many to follow. The final story that I picked is from Hindustan Times. This is about pajama suits that are selling like hotcakes in Japan. Why are they selling like hotcakes? This is the social media era, and we are all working from home. There is a new era of office work that we are all undergoing, transformation, changes that we have been forced to or pushed to. And Japan, as a result of that, you can see the business getting hampered there. So they have come up with a very novel kind of idea, especially when it comes to selling their clothes. The pajama suit, what is it? It is a mix of both. It's a mix of a suit at the top and pajamas at the bottom, and it gives you a feeling that you're working from home, but it gives you a feeling, especially when you're facing all these Zoom meetings, it gives you a bit of professionalism, so gives you comfort at the same time. So it's something interesting that people in Japan are doing at a very large scale. And there are 4 colors that are on offer, and according to the company that is into it, they are managing to get huge sales, especially when it comes to black, grey, and navy blue colors. People buying it like hotcakes there, and every person in Japan, feeling comfortable, especially when it comes to using this kind of pajama suits, especially when they're facing the cameras and when they're taking on discussions and meetings all across using the net. So that's all I have in this morning of paper review. Back to you.
Necessity is the mother of invention, Anil, and in these COVID times, pandemic times, it's not just the gadgets, the laptops, the phones that are required for work from home, but it is also these pajama suits that are selling like hotcakes in Japan. Thank you so much for joining us with those inputs for the web review.
Well, it's time now for our next segment. Across the globe, we'll be, of course, bringing you the latest updates on the COVID situation. In addition to that, the weather worsening, not just getting colder, rather, not just in India, but in other parts of the world as well. We'll take a look at all that in Across the Globe.
We begin this section by taking a look at an update on the global COVID-19 situation. When we talk of the global situation, more than 7 crore 45 lakh COVID-19 cases have been reported worldwide, with over 16 lakh 54,000 deaths. Over 5 crore 23 lakh people have recovered from the virus. The United States continues to remain the worst hit country by the pandemic so far, with the highest number of infections. The US has recorded over 1 crore 73 lakh cases of the virus, with death toll surging past 3 lakh 14,000. Brazil follows US in terms of death toll with 1 lakh 83,000 deaths.
The Inter-American Development Bank has announced that it will mobilize $1 billion to help Latin American and Caribbean countries acquire and distribute COVID-19 vaccines. The funds will complement $1.2 billion in resources that the IDB has committed in 2020. The announcement came amid growing concern about a sharp rise in COVID-19 infections and deaths in the region. The IDB said the extra funds will help countries buy vaccine doses individually or through multilateral efforts such as the World Health Organization's COVAX program. Meanwhile, IDB reiterated its call for Latin American and Caribbean governments to redouble efforts to prepare national deployment and vaccination plans.
In France, Prime Minister Jean Castex has said that people could start receiving COVID-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer-BioNTech in the last week of December if European Union authorities approve it next week. France has already pre-ordered 200 million doses of COVID vaccine and is hoping to administer COVID vaccines to 1 million people in January and February. Meanwhile, European Commission officials said that European Union could give its final approval for Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine as early as December 23rd.
And an Australia-based company is preparing to distribute the first over-the-counter COVID antigen test that can be used at home after securing emergency use authorization from the US Food and Drug Administration. The test by Ellume offers a nasal swab analyzer that connects to a software application on user's smartphone and gives results in 20 minutes. FDA has said that anyone above 2 years of age, including those not showing symptoms, can take the test. The regulatory nods will help expand Americans' access to testing, reduce the burden on labs and test supplies, and give more testing options.
Healthcare workers in Peru took to the streets in Lima to protest over labor conditions while out on the front lines of the country's battle with COVID-19 pandemic. Protesters gathered outside Peruvian Health Ministry to demand better working conditions and pay. Health workers want government to begin an indefinite strike in January if there will be no increase in salaries and the budget for health sector. Coronavirus cases in Peru totaled 9,89,457 with 36,858 deaths so far. Health authorities are warning of a possible second wave of infections early next year.
And Texas and 9 other states have sued Google, accusing it of working with Facebook in violation of the antitrust law to boost online advertising business. In its lawsuit, Texas asked a judge to find Google guilty of breaking the antitrust law and to order the violations to stop. It also accused Google of working with Facebook. The lawsuit was filed in the Eastern District of Texas. The states have asked that Alphabet Inc.-owned company compensate them for damages and sought structural relief, which is usually interpreted as forcing a company to divest some of its assets.
A winter storm marched up U.S. East Coast, delivering a disruptive blow to transportation systems and causing traffic mayhem in Pennsylvania. A wintry mix had been brought to Washington and wind-whipped snow to New York City, parts of Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia and Pennsylvania, as it threatened a swath of the country that is home to more than 50 million people. Forecasters said that parts of Virginia and North Carolina will be blanketed with a thin layer of ice, while areas in mid-Atlantic region closer to the coast will get only rain before the storm moves out to the sea from Boston late on Thursday. Officials throughout the area urged motorists to stay off the roads and residents to stay home.
Britain and the European Union are in the final stretch of talks to keep an estimated $1 trillion of annual trade free of tariffs and quotas beyond December 31st. British Prime Minister said there was a good trade deal to be done with the European Union. Meanwhile, the bloc's chief executive said that Britain and the European Union have moved closer to sealing a new trade deal, but it was unclear whether both sides would succeed. However, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has reassured that there is hope for an agreement, although with a narrow path. She added that discussions about access to UK fishing waters for EU vessels were still very difficult. Britain formally left the EU on January 31st, but has been in a transition period since then, under which rules on trade, travel and business remain unchanged.
More than 30,000 tremors have rocked Antarctica since the end of August. According to the University of Chile, a spike in seismic activity has intrigued researchers who study the remote, snow-bound continent. Scientists with the university's National Seismological Center said that several tectonic plates and microplates meet near the strait, leading to frequent rumbling, but the past 3 months have been unusual. The shakes have become so frequent that the strait itself, once increasing in width at a rate about 7 or 8 millimeters or 0.3 inches a year, is now expanding 15 centimeters. Up next, we get you updates and reports from the world of sports in our segment, Sports Track.
Well, in sports news, the historic first ever day-night test between India and Australia will start in Adelaide today. Team India have announced they're playing 11 for the first test. Prithvi Shaw and Riddhiman Saha have been named in India's playing 11 for the first test. The side has opted to go in with 6 batsmen in the lineup. Riddhiman has been given the nod as the wicket-keeper for the first game. The first test of the series will be a pink ball contest. Australia had won the ODI series, while the men in blue walked away with the honours in the T20 series.
All India Football Federation formally launched its bid to host the AFC Asian Cup 2027 in New Delhi during an illustrious event attended by Union Sports Minister Kiren Rijiju, former India player Gauramangi Singh and women's national team star Ashalata Devi. Union Sports Minister emphasized that the bid would take Indian football to new heights by working in partnership with the AFC to unlock new commercial opportunities, drive growth and build on an ever-growing love for the sport among the country's youthful population.
Union Sports Minister Kiren Rijiju talk about India's bid for the 2027 AFC Cup, sir. What do you think will be India's USP and how much you are confident of winning this bid?
I think the AFC Asian Cup is going to be a tough competition because Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iran are very strong bidding countries along with India. So I'm very hopeful that the government is also supporting the Football Federation and we should be able to get it. We will also approach all the other member countries, and our players are also, looking forward to get the maximum exposure. Government effort is absolutely there, but we want that people of the country also stand behind in terms of supporting our team and our players.
Appreciate your time. So that was Union Sports Minister telling us that the country has to stand up together and be united if they have to win this bid for the AFC 2027. With camera person RK, this is Tapush Bhattacharya, DD India, Delhi.
And Anshu Malik became the first Indian to finish on the podium at the Individual Wrestling World Cup, winning a silver medal in the women's 57 kg division in Belgrade in Serbia. The 19-year-old lost to Moldova's Anastasia Nichita 5-1 in the final. Anshu was defensive early on and conceded a point on passivity, but only went into the break with a 1-point deficit. Anshu attempted a takedown early in the second half, but the Moldovan pulled her down to score 2. Anshu reversed the position to get on board, but with a minute and 40 seconds to go, Nichita got the Indian to the ground and went behind to score the final 2 points of the match. The result would also serve as a confidence boost for Anshu herself. The 57 kg division is one where India have not yet qualified an athlete for the Tokyo Olympics, and former world bronze medalist Pooja Dhanda is expected to challenge Anshu for a place on the Indian team.
And up next we get to the health tip of the day to make sure that you remain in good health and spirits.
Let's find out what Kiran has for us today.
Immunity is the defense mechanism that keeps our body safe from infections. How does nutrition affect the immune system, and what are the healthy ways to strengthen your immune system? We get to more in this report.
Good nutrition is essential to a strong immune system, which may offer protection from seasonal illnesses and other health problems. Immune system is body's defense against diseases and infections. No one food or supplement can prevent illnesses. To help support the immune system, the nutrients in overall eating plan may be included on a regular basis.
It is said that we are what we eat. Hence, the type of the diet, that means 6 days and 4 form, is very important to building the immunity. It is a wholesome diet. Again, the timing is also very important. Breakfast, lunch and dinner should be between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And it is also very important, until and unless you are not hungry, you should not take any food. It is said that Agni is very important to digest the food, to build the immunity.
Providing a diet high in nutritious foods, rich in vitamins and minerals, support optimal function of the immune system by providing antioxidants to slow damage of the cells caused by free radicals or assisting in T cell production.
According to Ayurveda, certain food ingredient has a great immunomodulatory and immunobuilding effect. For example, the spices like cinnamon, black pepper, ginger, basil and also the resin have a great immunobuilding effect. That's why the kadha is being prescribed. Haldi and golden milk also very good as an immune booster. Avla and all Avla products are also very good. Fruit and the dry fruits are also good to build up the immunity. And the milk with ghee is also the best as an immune booster.
Adequate and appropriate nutrition is the foundation of immunity and health. Along with nutrition, several factors like sleep and physical activity help in immune system to be strong and keep us disease-free.
Healthy diet and proper nutrition helps to strengthen the immune system. So let food be your medicine. Eat right to stay healthy in life. Kiran Bhardwaj, DD News.
Alright, so that was the health tip to make sure that your immune system remains strong.
And it's the 17th of December today. Let's take a look at the events that made this day special in history.
It was on this day in 1903 American duo Wilbur and Orville Wright took turns piloting and monitoring their flying machine in Kill Devil's Hill, North Carolina. Orville piloted the first flight that lasted just 12 seconds and 120 feet. It was on this day in 1914 that cricketer Syed Mushtaq Ali was born in Indore, Madhya Pradesh. Syed Mushtaq Ali was a right-handed opening batsman who holds the distinction of scoring the first overseas test century by an Indian player when he scored 112 against England at Old Trafford in 1936. The Indian domestic T20 series is named after him. It was on this day in 1928 that Indian revolutionaries Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev and Rajguru assassinated British police officer James Sanders in Lahore, Punjab to avenge the death of Lala Lajpat Rai at the hands of police. The three were executed in 1931.
And up next, we get you the weather report for the day. Cold wave to severe cold wave conditions are likely in some pockets over Punjab and Haryana and Chandigarh over the next 2 days, and cold wave conditions at isolated places over these regions during the next 24 hours. Also, this cold wave is in isolated pockets is expected over Rajasthan during next 2 days and over Delhi and West Uttar Pradesh also during the next 24 hours. These cold wave conditions are likely in isolated pockets over Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi, North Rajasthan and West Uttar Pradesh during next 24 hours. Dense fog in isolated places is likely over Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh during the morning hours, and over Punjab and North Rajasthan during again morning hours on 17th and 18th of December. Very dense fog is likely over Punjab and North Rajasthan during the morning hours today.
Falling minimum temperatures by 2 to 3 degrees Celsius over parts of the plains of northwest India and Maharashtra in the next 2 to 3 days. Time now to take a look at temperatures across the country. Well, we've come to the end of today's edition of Breakfast News. But as always, before we go, we leave you with interesting glimpses to make your day all that better. Today, we bring you these glimpses of a holiday-themed drive-through experience in Los Angeles, where visitors can enjoy a traditional Christmas light display from the safety of their own cars. Take a look.
Yes, and also on that note of festivity, we'll end this bulletin here. But before that, a quick reminder. We are urging all of you to be part of Mask Up India initiative. Remember, wearing a mask, but wearing it correctly is very important in these times of the pandemic. It's just a simple task. Wear a mask, but wear it correctly and properly and protect yourself and people around you against COVID-19. On that thought, we'll end this bulletin here. Thanks for watching Breakfast News. Bye-bye.
Namaskar.